Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where digital discussions in the worlds of pop culture, sports, social media, and indeed television. My guest is on one of my favorite shows on television right now. You can find it on Showtime. It's called The Chi. It is a drama that takes place in Chicago. We're with, his character play is Chef Dan. We're with Mickey O'Sullivan. Mickey, welcome to Popternative.
What's up, everybody? How you doing, Petey?
I'm doing well, man. So right off the bat, we talked about it a little bit off air. The show is, first of all, congrats. The show is fantastic.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
The cast and crew, it's amazing. What I find interesting, a little bit of an icebreaker, is the show takes place in Chicago. It shows, the rough and tough neighborhoods of Chicago, a lot of the dealings of that. You are also from Chicago. How is it to kind of be in a show about your home city, your hometown?
It feels pretty surreal. I guess, I did Chicago PD and I did APB out here, and I've done a lot of theater in this town as well. I spent some time in New York as well, but like to be in a show that feels authentically like the Chicago I grew up in. And you're saying like rough and tumble, and that's certainly part of it, but like the thing that I love about the show is the color palette too. Like Faisal was talking a little bit about this.
Yeah, he did.
From the initial trailer, I was just like, that's beautiful, and that's what we're trying to do here is tell stories about people, and people are beautiful things, you know what I mean? They're complex, and they contrast and they clash sometimes. So yeah, it feels pretty surreal, like, especially being able to go home to your family after you shoot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just, I didn't think about that because, you're a Chicago product on a show about Chicago. So I definitely wanted to get that in there. Such a powerful cast, a show that kind of has an ensemble cast where there's so many storylines and a lot of them kind of intertwine, and certain characters you didn't think will meet certain characters. That's kind of like a transformation, like an evolution of the industry, I think, Mickey, where there's so many talented actors and actresses out there that a lot of shows are indeed surrounded by surrounding casts. Like it's an ensemble cast. It's not just one or two people.
Yeah. Well, it's a kind of a multi-protagonist story too, so you have, it's a little bit more complex and rich, and and a lot of these people too, like a lot of these actors in the show are just absolutely phenomenal actors, and I don't watch. I watch more TV and film now, but for about like 6 or 7 years there, I didn't watch too much. It's just kind of like hustling and grinding all the time. I couldn't really afford, Netflix and stuff back then. Like $10.99 a month. I was like, no, I'd rather my tuna, But so, I get to see these people. Like I showed up the first day and I was working with Jason Mitchell, and, I had heard about all the stuff he had done, but I never saw him act. And so getting to act with him for the first time and being in the scene with him, I almost had to like pinch myself because I was seeing what was going to be on the screen too, like every take was worthy of being selected. It was beautiful.
How did you kind of, prepare for the role? I mean, Chef Dan is a character that kind of, he kind of, like, it looks like he has a lot of power control over the restaurant. He's a very empowering character. He seems to be nice to Jason's character, but if he wants to, he could be a ball buster. Is it fun playing the character? Talk a little bit about Mickey O'Sullivan playing Chef Dan.
Yeah, so first thing I did when I saw that script, when I saw the audition sides and everything, was like, first of all, what do I know about being a chef, right? And so I went back I used to work in a kitchen when I was down on like the southwest suburbs of Chicago. It was called the Valley. And when I was in like middle school, I worked there for a hot minute, but I just couldn't take the stress, man.
Yeah.
My brother, he did it. He was incredible, but he was in like 8th grade trying to save money like a financial genius. And he was doing dishes, and he'd have these nightmares in the middle of the night. The dishes would just never stop piling up,
Wow.
I couldn't take that. Like, it was like always super fast paced, people yelling at each other and then smiling and hugging at the end of the day. And I was like, I don't get it. And then I worked at that same restaurant a few years later, and it gets heated in a kitchen. You know, like you're moving, you're grooving, you got deadlines to hit. You know, sometimes you don't see the head chef around because they're taking care of all the managerial stuff, as far as making sure like dinner menus are ready and you know, figuring out what supply you can use. And so when I'm looking at that first scene where I'm talking with my wife Christina Emerson, who plays Sarah, it's talking about like, hey, we don't have enough money for this, we still haven't paid this guy. And what I saw, you know, there's a great jazz musician, I'm gonna forget his name now like a jerk, but he said, play what's not there. And I always like to think about that when I'm acting, is like, you have the lines and they're very helpful, but what comes alive is what happens in between those things. And what I saw there was somebody making split decisions on the fly, very complex decisions that nobody else needed to know the answer to. Mm-hmm. Just him. And so like, I think you get, like, I don't think of him as a jerk. I think of him as a boss who's stressed, maybe a boss who's maybe in over his head, you know, would be a better chef than if he was able to handle all these other things. And even in the last episode, if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler, Sarah says, you know, like there's some, you know, I'm not handling the finances too well. And that's true of so many restaurants. Restaurants are a tough business. Have you ever worked in restaurants?
No, I have not, but I have family members that have.
Yeah, it's a tough business, especially if you're a family-run place. Like, you know, you're this close to going broke all the time. You know, produce is expensive and it goes bad. And so if you're wasting things, if you see one of your prep chefs or prep cooks or whatever, and they're, you know, wasting half of a thing of carrots every time, half a stem of carrots or whatever, that's money that's going out the window. And so when they're wasting time, you're like, do you want to work here or not? Because I'll give you a shot, but not if you're messing around, you know? Mm-hmm. I was talking with a buddy. I was listening to an interview with Michael Shannon recently. You know Michael Shannon, right?
Of course.
So good, so good. He's always told that he's super intense or intimidating. And he's like, you know, I'm just following the rules that I was taught of acting, right? Raise the stakes, make it more important, find the relationships, use your words.
I've seen him in interviews though, like off camera, and he's mellow. He's like he's not serious at all. What can I make an argument?
Totally. If anything, he's serious. He looks serious because people expect him to be. You know what I mean? And so they approach him like an animal. You know what I mean? But no, he's super nice. I met him outside Steppenwolf here in Chicago once. He's a ensemble member and a founding member over at Red Orchid Theater, which is down here. And they do great work. And I went to go see a premiere, and he was there, and I was like, dude, Take Shelter, so good.
Yeah.
He was like, thank you.
Yeah.
I expected him to be like, get away from me, you know?
It's one of those things where, you know, and I mean, we've talked about this. We're both big, you know, hockey guys, and I basically, you know, grew up watching hockey. Grew up like watching these guys, admiring these players. I started kind of working in like the sport and kind of going to all these events, meeting these players, and I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but like at the same time, like you're a person, and I'm a person. Yeah. It's the same thing with actors and actresses. Like, you know, it's one of those things where a lot of actors and actresses, like, for example, and it's a misconception, but you can, like, contest for this, because I'm sure, like, there's some people that do it. Like, there are people that need day jobs while they act, right?
I think, you know, the percentage of working actors above the poverty line in SAG is, like, not high. You know, there's more people who aren't working who are making enough money in SAG.
But there's misconceptions, yeah.
But like, you know, content, it's changing. TV and film is changing, and the way that we produce is changing. So like, there's so much going on right now. It's incredible. I have so much respect for like managers and agents right now, because how do you keep up? There's how many channels are there now? It's incredible.
Well, it's funny you mentioned. It's great. It's like you knew what I was gonna ask. It's like you knew. So, so basically, with the amount of content out there, I find this really cool, because you know when you have like, you know, a class like presentation in elementary school, and they say like, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? And everyone's like, I want to be a movie star. I want to be now people are saying, I want to be a TV star. I find TV is because of like Netflix and all the streaming services. It's like movies are still there. You see it with like the big movies, the big blockbusters. It's there to stay. But Netflix and other streaming services and
And
non-cable. It's insane. Like it's like television is its own medium now and is competing head to head with film, in my opinion, Mickey.
No doubt. And I think it's changing the way that we tell stories on TV, and it's changing the way that we tell stories and market stories. And I think like what I'm really proud of most of all to be a part of the Shy is there's a lot of people who will talk a big game about being the change they wish to see in the world, and for the longest time, I mean, it happens even still. Like you don't see a fair representation of the world's population on the TVs that we're marketing to them, and we don't see authentic stories from. We don't see people of color being hired very often. And then for Lena to not only create this show, tell her authentic version of Chicago, and hire writers of color, hire women of color to be a showrunner for season 2, and for Showtime to get behind it. And it's just proof. I mean, you're watching the show, like this is better than most TV, in my opinion.
It's up there. And
what have we been missing out on for the? You know what I mean? What have we been missing out on because of our almost willful decision not to accurately and fairly represent the population.
I know. What do you think of, because what you brought up, with there's so much out there, we might miss it out. I've always asked this question because a lot of people and a lot of, people like on screen, a lot of the storytellers like yourself might see it as kind of like a double-edged sword, but there's a good and a bad about there being a lot of content out there. For one, there's an opportunity for more auditions, more roles, but then you can kind of think about the devil's advocates. You can kind of think about there's so many people now that are going to capitalize on an opportunity because there's so many fantastic actors and actresses out there. You obviously
so
don't
much time in the day though.
No, absolutely. But you don't want to think about it. But have you ever thought about it as, there's all these opportunities. There's more opportunities than ever because there's new shows and there's way more networks. But the competition is going to get bigger and bigger because there's so much talent out there getting ready, waiting kind of in the rafters, ready to strike almost.
Sure, yeah. I don't know, I think one of the nice parts about where I see our industry going, and I hope it goes, is that the more people that are trying to tell stories, the more you're challenging other storytellers. And the only way you're going to get better is if you're trying things. But it cost so much to try things before that it doesn't now.
Yeah.
I can make a short film here tonight and send it to you tomorrow. You can edit it and we can send it to a film festival in 2 days. We can do that for under $100. And that means that we can try things. And so I feel like we're all getting better by seeing better stories and seeing, this doesn't feel like hockey for me where a 20-year-old can compete for a 35-year-old's job. To be honest, I feel fortunate to be in a position that when I'm 45, I'll be competing against people who look 45.
Yeah.
And not that 20-year-old with all that energy that I used to have,
I didn't think about it that way.
Totally. And I don't know, I think this is something that Chicago taught me and working hard, my mom certainly, is that you are your biggest competition. There's a movie called Without Limits. I've got a tattoo here. It says Live Without Limits. It's with Billy Crudup. It's about Steve Prefontaine. Do you know the North American long distance runner?
Yeah. So, I haven't seen the movie though.
Oh, it's beautiful. There's 2 or 3 of them. It's an incredible story. Billy Crudup does an amazing job. But what he says is, I'm not racing against them, and I'm going to misquote here. I'm racing against myself. Every time I go out there, I'm seeing if I'm better than I was last time, if I'm better than I am. There's a challenge to yourself. And when you put it that way, it's not like I would never try to slam a door in somebody's face. When I'm in an audition and I'm with other people, you're trying to raise them up too.
Yeah.
And when you get outside, there's no given a cold shoulder. It happens in LA. To be honest, I'm lucky. Like the competition in LA and New York is different, and so I think it changes the way that people act, and even the rents are higher, and so that changes the way that you approach your craft too. You know, if you're worried about making your rent, yeah, you're gonna compete a little bit harder, I guess, in the room. But I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if it's helpful to go into a room and be a dick, or be shut off. You know, to me that never worked. And
just be chef dad all the time.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
But you know what? I haven't seen. I mean, I get it. Like he's rough around the edges, but like Chef Daddy's not like. I see good in him. Like I don't see him being like the jerk you say he is. Like he wants him to have an opportunity. You see it. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's gonna be some things that happen that might change that opinion of your character, but for people that have not watched The Chi, they need to watch The Chi. Like they have to.
If I can piggyback on that real fast, like what I love about this show and what Lena Waithe has always said is that she named all these characters after people she loves, so she's taking that into consideration. So I don't know a single character on this show that I don't relate with in some way, that I don't empathize with. Like you say, like gruff and tumble, but then you're also like fighting for that character as well. And I feel like you could really root for. You can root for so many of them. There's a guy named Barton Fitzpatrick who's an amazing actor. He plays Reg on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the business sense there. And not to say that, like, I'm, like, all for everything that the decisions he makes, but he's coming at it from a perspective of business and survival and for pleasure, for sure. And if you change the circumstances, change the name of those circumstances, it's the same as the lawyer working at his job late at night, being a, cutthroat lawyer or cutthroat, finance guy. And what I dig about this show is that all those characters, I feel like they have a lot of thought that goes into their decisions and who they are. There's something redeemable about everybody.
Absolutely.
And more than one thing,
Oh, for sure. I think we'll wrap up soon. But Mickey, thank you so much for
talking with you sometime, though, man.
Okay, we should talk hockey, but there's just so much to talk about.
Oh, I know. Well, what do you? So you do work with the Senators, right? And I'm with. I did a Blackhawks commercial this year. That was awesome. That was an experience in my life, and especially after kind of a dismal season this year. But what I want to know is so. When you're having interactions with players and everything, at what point in the day, because it's a different person. I babysat for a few NHL players. Mm-hmm. And you get a different person at different points of the season and different points of the day too. And so, like, how do you manage that?
So I don't personally work with the team. I run like the adult hockey leagues that are branded by the Senators. But when I work with the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, there was a lot of working with the players, and I find that interesting because we do a lot of the like when we did the Subway Super Series in Gatineau, where we had the best players from the league play as an all-star team, and they played against the players from Russia, and it was like a series. You just see that they're doing all the interviews during the day or the day after a game, but they're focused. They have a goal and it's there. Yeah. There's no distractions. Like there's no like taking it's changed a little bit now because a lot of like people are using social media, but it's they are in the zone. They're not distracted. Like you look at the Olympics right now, and people are focused, but the athletes know that this is their time to shine, to have fun, and to go nuts. And they're on social media, they're tweeting, they're posting. You know what I mean? They're having a good time. The hockey players, they're dialed in. They wanna focus on it, and then all that other stuff comes in. But I find that interesting. But that's basically what I saw from it.
That's really cool. Yeah, and the other thing too is in the Olympics, this is also a very personal moment. Like they're not making the big bucks there. They're doing something for their country, for themselves, for their family, for whoever. My friend Kendall Coyne was on the U.S. women's.
She's okay. I'm gonna tell you something. Every time I see her play, you know what I think of? Remember Superbad? Do you remember the movie Superbad?
Yeah.
You remember the scene where Seth Rogen is chasing Michael Cera?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's the fastest kid alive. He's so fast. That's what I think, because Kendall Coyne is so fast. She's too fast. She's too fast. And let me tell you something. That was one. Did you watch that game?
It was the best game I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, because you're a Team USA fan, so a lot of Canadians are like, no, listen.
Too long, okay?
Listen. It was an unbelievable hockey game, and I was so tired. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with my ACL stuff. I haven't slept that much. I watched that whole game, man.
I watched it on my phone because I couldn't find it downtown. I love listening to the audio of the game. I can't go to a bar and watch a hockey game because half of it for me is the commentating. You know what I mean? And so I'm watching this on the way home, and I'm pausing every 2 seconds, like on the train, like screaming, and like I was that nut job. But it was such a good game. I got home, and thankfully my girlfriend had the game on. She's watching it too, and we just sat there from the moment that overtime started, almost completely silent because so much was on the line for them.
Absolutely.
It was so tense, And I was just so proud of, to see a childhood friend and somebody who's worked so hard, and to know that that's deep, to get a silver medal from Canada in upsets, not even upsets, but just in hard games.
The overtime was insane. Like, one can argue that was the back and forth. It was just it was nuts. Now, this is an important question. Are you a world, I hope you like the World Juniors, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Not this year because USA didn't go that far.
The kid that I used to babysit tore it up in the World Juniors 2 years ago. Alex Nylander. So the Nylanders who played.
Yeah, Alex Nylander. You babysit Alex Nylander?
Yeah, Alex and William, and we would play shinny hockey in the basement, And I was like, this is getting better as a player, and I was climbing the ranks, and I was playing with these kids. I remember my brother and I would both just look at each other and be like, they're too good.
Wow. I did not. How long did you how old were they when you babysitted them?
I forget their ages, but we babysat them. So it was when their dad Michael was in Chicago playing for Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And they're pretty young. I mean, young enough to get a timeout every now and then. You know what I mean? We sit in the penalty box. That's what we call it. But we would, take care of them for about a year and a half. My mom met them because she used to clean houses with one of her side jobs so that she could pay for hockey for us because it's so expensive. And we'd play hockey and stuff downstairs, and it would just get better and better every day.
That's
to see your father, and Michael Nylander was one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. He always had time to answer questions for me. He would he bought me my first pair of hockey rollerblades, inline rollerblades. He would get me sticks and stuff, not to autograph, but so that I could play,
Yeah.
And he would cook dinner for us. And to have a dad like that, a level-headed guy, who's not only a phenomenal hockey player, but a good human being, I think set them on a really good path. And definitely had an impact on me, to see somebody be that successful.
No, absolutely. It's insane, but it's insane that that tournament does that is that is my Super Bowl. That tournament, the World Junior Hockey Championship, that's it. That is it's the best. It's the hockey gets better every year.
Yeah.
It's so good, and oh man, I could talk about this forever.
Why don't so I'm gonna go up to Minnesota here in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be watching the Minnesota State championships.
Yeah,
up there, the hockey is good enough to watch that and for scouts to be lined up. You guys get the Q. You guys get so many junior leagues. You get good hockey all over the place. I gotta go to Minnesota to really watch it in one tournament. So why don't we recap? We'll do a short recap of that in like 3 weeks before I go shoot this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's what we should do. We should do a hockey talk, and we also do panels. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, our World Junior preview show. We had Craig Button on, and it was a good time. Mickey, where can people follow you on social media? Plug away. What can they check it out? Plug away.
Totally. So on Twitter, I'm at MickSully2, MickSull2, or SULLY2. On Instagram, I'm the Mickey O'Sullivan, THE. And find me on Facebook, and I usually post a lot of things publicly. But I'm on YouTube. I got reels and stuff on there. You can go to my website, www.mickeyO'Sullivan.com. Or just like find me in the middle of Chicago walking around trying to memorize my lines looking like a crazy person,
Well, I wish you all the best, and we'll talk soon, man.
Dude, you're a rock star. Thank you so much, man.
No problem. Well, this has been Popternative. You catch previous episodes, Popternative, YouTube for the video episodes, and iTunes or wherever else you listen to podcasts for the audio episodes. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, popternative.com for more content. Until next time, this is Mickey O'Sullivan, PD Beats, signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.